I don't think we talk about love very much when we talk about leadership. I also don't think we talk about this attribute very often. And I think it's another key component, because I don't think you get to the genuine concern unless you have this right. And I think there's a lot of problems as a leader if you don't have this right. But we don't talk about it very much. There's not much written on it at all. And that attribute is the attribute of humility. Humility. Now that might seem strange coming from someone who spent over 30 years of his life serving in his organization that has a bumper sticker that says, when you're the finest, it's hard to be humble. You know, that's one of our favorite bumper stickers. But I think the truth is that it's a problem for all of us. If you're breathing, this is a challenge, or you just don't understand. But if you're going to have genuine love for your people, it can't be about you, because you'll never get there. And I think a lot about this subject, because I see so many examples of the opposite, of leaders who are really about themselves, who are arrogant, and the impact that it has. And I feel I was fortunate that early in my life there was a very distinct incident that occurred that helped me to see what arrogance looked like and how dangerous it was. I grew up in New York on Long Island, and I was a baseball player. This takes place when I was in 9th grade. And I mean, I'm going to say a couple things about humility, but I was actually a pretty good baseball player. Like my dad pictured me being on the mound at Yankee Stadium, you know, with the pinstripe New York Yankee. I mean, he saw it, and things were going pretty well. So at the end of my 9th grade baseball season, it ends, and the lacrosse team has their Long Island championship between Suffolk and Nassau County. And that was really the big lacrosse championship in the country at that time. It's expanded much beyond that at this point. So I watched this game. It's at Hofstra University, a university on Long Island, on AstroTurf, under the lights. It was electric. And I'm watching this and I'm going, I got to play this sport. And I knew it was at the same time as baseball. But that night I made the decision, I'm playing lacrosse. Well, now I got to tell my dad. Now, I don't know if you've seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding. But my original last name is Athanasiades. It was shortened to Athens when my grandparents came to Ellis Island. And Dad ran a pretty tight ship. Like, if you were going to make a major decision, you're going to have to talk to Dad about it, and you better have your facts lined up. So I go to see Dad that night. I said, hey, Dad, I saw this lacrosse game tonight, and I made this decision. I'm going to drop baseball. I'm going to start playing lacrosse next year as a 10th grader. You know, kind of smiling, hoping it'll catch. He goes, what are you talking about? So I said, well, Dad, I don't know. There's something great about this game. I feel like I can play it. I think I could be good at it. And then he asked me a question I didn't anticipate. He said, so what position are you going to play? I didn't even know the names of the positions on the field. And I knew, though, if I hesitated with Dad, it was all over. So I had to have an answer, and I figured the person in front of the goal was called a goalie. So I just quickly said, Dad, I'm going to be a goalie. He said, what do you know about being a goalie? I said, Dad, I don't know anything, but I'll learn. So Dad gave me one of the, but he didn't stand in my way, to his credit. So I get a book, a ball, and a goalie stick. Now I'm stuck. Like, I'm going to have to be a goalie. I don't think I really want to be a goalie, but now I'm a goalie. So I go down to my local elementary school, and it's got a great brick wall, and I'm looking at the book, you know, teaching myself how to play lacrosse. And in my high school during that era, if you were a 10th grader, you went out for junior varsity, 11th and 12th was varsity, and there was really no crossover. Now there's a lot more of it. So I go out for the junior varsity team. There's 4 goalies. I'm the 4th goalie, and as we go into the first scrimmage game, I'm 4th on the depth chart too. Because all that stuff I did on the wall, like, that was all theoretical. I had never had a human being shoot a ball at me, so it was a lot harder than I anticipated. So, first scrimmage, 4th guy, he gets to go in at the very end, right? There's 4 minutes left. It was all 4s. They take 4 shots on me, score 4 goals. I don't even touch the ball. So I come off the field, and I'm pretty dejected. And the coach comes over to me and he says, hey, you're going to be okay. Keep working. Don't give up on yourself. So I believed him. So by the first game, I'm the starting goalie. We go undefeated that year. I'm the MVP of the team. But the best thing's about to happen. The head coach, Coach Lippman, and in my high school, lacrosse was the sport. He's the man on campus. And he calls me into his office. And he says, Art, I've been watching you play. And he said, you know, we're about to go into the playoffs. And you know, Jim's our starting goalie at the varsity, and I got 2 backups to him. But I'm going to bring you up to varsity. You're going to be my number 2 guy. Now, I didn't say this to Coach Lippman, but I'm thinking to myself, like, Athens, how good are you? I mean, you never even played this sport before. They never bring anybody up to the varsity, and you're going to be on the varsity. So, of course, my head swelled, my chest. I walk out. I'm hoping my fellow students are going to say, hey, what Coach Lippman say? No one does, so I have to go up to people and go, hey, you know what Coach Lippman said? And they're like, no. I'm going up to the varsity. Okay, then the word spreads around, the high school, and I'm walking down the hall, and you can see people go, that's the guy. Okay, so now it's the scrimmage game, the playoff game. And I got the varsity jersey on. And I walk out to the field, and I couldn't care less about the team, couldn't care less about the game, couldn't care less about the players, couldn't care less about the coach. It was all about me. I hate to admit this, but it's true. I actually walked out to the field at an angle so the crowd could actually see me and my number as I was walking out to the field. I wanted everybody to see this kid out there, varsity. Nobody does that. And I'm on the sidelines. We do our warm-up. Now I'm going to enjoy the game. And I'm looking around. Oh, man, I hope everyone, this is great. And all of a sudden, this shot hits the starting goalie. He crumples to the ground. Now my heart's really beating. And I can remember to this day what I was thinking. I was thinking to myself, I hope everybody is watching. It wasn't about like, I want to go out and do well for the team. I hope everybody's watching. So Coach Lippman runs out to the field, talks to the crumpled goalie, and starts walking right for me. And as he gets to me, he said, hey, Art, that shot hit Jim where it really hurts. I said, okay. And the shot cracked his cup. And we need your cup. So he said, hey, a couple of you guys get around Art so we can get his cup. So the team gathers around me. I reach down, I get my cup, and he walks my cup out to Jim. Jim's up by this time. Jim puts my cup in, plays the rest of the game. I don't play in the game. The next day at school, all those people I was hoping were watching, they were watching. Because they said things like, hey, Art, we saw you didn't get in the game, but it looks like your cup had a great game. Like, hey, way to go. I mean, I was absolutely humiliated. But something happened that day, and I'd like to say, well, it's cured me of all time. I don't have any arrogance problem at all. I'm always humble. Not true. It's not true. But it taught me such a key lesson that it can't be about me, particularly in a team, unit, or organizational setting. There's a comedian by the name of Brian Regan who I really appreciate some of his routines, and one of them is about airline travel. And this one just hits me every time I hear it. And what he talks a lot of different things about eating the food and all that, but one part of it is the overhead compartment. He says, those stewardesses, they're just so patient with people. He says, have you ever been in your seat and you look at someone trying to get something up into the overhead, like a mattress and a lamp, and it's like not going to fit in a million years, and you're going, what's that guy's perception problem? Like, what's wrong with him? But the stewardess comes up, like, oh, well, maybe if we just turn it a little bit or move this over. And he said, I'd last about 8 seconds as a stewardess, because I'd go up there and go, hey, look, you got about this much room, and you got a dead yak there. Like, it's not going to fit. And then he's like, oh, you don't see all the people waiting to get by you? Of course you don't see. It's your world. It's all about you. Well, when you're all set, Captain You Planet, let us know. And I watch that, and I laugh along. And I've met a lot of Captain You Planets, not just on airplanes, who are in significant leadership positions where it's all about them. And when it's all about you, it can never be about your people. So if we are going to be serious about having genuine concern for our people, it starts with having an attitude of humility, that it's not about us. It's about the people. It's about the mission. It's about something bigger than us. So we never find ourselves giving up our cup and everybody just kind of saying, wow, what a fool. But then it takes action too. And the action to have genuine love for people is sacrifice. That's how love is measured, by our degree of sacrifice for other people. Two of my sons right now play collegiate lacrosse, and it's not here at Navy, so this is not about Coach Mead, in case you know Coach Mead. But they had a coach who used to talk all the time about how much he loved his players. I watched it. I watched him lead this team, this collegiate coach. And then one of my sons had 2 different knee surgeries, injured playing lacrosse, an ACL, and then secondly, a second injury with his meniscus. That coach never called him. That coach never visited him. He sent an assistant to go check up on him. And it just struck me, you can talk about love all you want. It's got to show up in action, and action normally requires sacrifice. Lance Corporal Matson was one of my Marines in my first platoon. He was a terrible Marine. He looked terrible. He did his job terribly. He had terrible interactions with everybody. He was awful. And we were getting ready for a contingency operation. We were flying out of Marine Corps Air Station Yuma the next morning, on a Monday morning. This was a Sunday night when this occurred. Matson was on leave, but he was due in that night on Sunday so that he would make movement with us. Yuma, Arizona, where we were, is about 3 hours from Phoenix. It's a long, lonely, dark drive between those 2 places. So I get a call at about 2200 at night, and it's Lance Corporal Matson. And Matson used to always talk very quickly. I think he talked fast, hoping no one could repeat or understand what he said, so he always could deny that he said anything. So he said, "Hey, sir, I tried to check with my fire squad leader. My platoon saw, no one's around, and so what I did is I found your number and I called you, and I just want to let you know I flew in off my leave. I'm in Phoenix. I'm stuck, and I don't have enough money for a bus, so I'm going to be in Phoenix, and I'm not going to make movement tomorrow, and I just want to make sure you're not going to, mark me UA." Okay, so Lance Corporal Matson, let me get this straight. You came off a leave, you flew into Phoenix. Your plan was to take a bus, but you don't have any money to take the bus. Yes, sir. And we're moving tomorrow on a contingency operation, and you want me to make sure that you don't get in trouble for this. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it was one of those moments in my life that I thought, if I'm ever to show Matson that I care about him, I'm going to do something extraordinary right now. So I said, "Lance Corporal Matson, I assume you're in the Phoenix bus terminal, because you must have checked to see what the fare was." I don't think he was in the Phoenix bus terminal. He was probably already ready to start a great night in Phoenix. So he kind of mumbled. And I said, "Takes about 3 hours. I'm going to drive up to Phoenix and get you. And I'm going to bring you back so you're not UA for the movement." Dead silence on the other end of the line. Of course, probably ruined, the other plans that he might have had that night. He said, "Okay, sir." So I drove 3 hours to Phoenix. By that time, he was at the bus station. Picked him up at the bus station, drove him back to Yuma. Now, there's nothing on the road between Phoenix and Yuma. It's all dark. There's no signs to even talk about, like, oh, there's a Holiday Inn sign. Have you ever been to a Holiday Inn? Where you can sort of start. I mean, you're going to actually have a real-life conversation. There's no other choice. So for 3 hours... For 3 hours, I get to know Lance Corporal Matson. And what I learned about Lance Corporal Matson is no one in his life would have gone 10 minutes out of their way to do anything for him, let alone what would turn out to be 6 hours. Matson would go on that deployment. He would become one of the best Marines in the platoon. But here's the trick. I didn't go do that because I wanted him to be the best Marine. I went and did that because I wanted him to know that I cared. I didn't know what the end result is because you don't have any control over that. I've done other sacrificial things that, it hasn't turned out that way. That has nothing to do with it. And the other thing is, I didn't really like Lance Corporal Matson, let alone love him. I didn't like him naturally. He was just not a very likable person. Doesn't matter. I'm called as a leader to love all of my people. Not just the ones that I happen to have a connection with or like, or they're from New York, or we can talk lacrosse. Has nothing to do with it. Coach Lou Holtz coached at Notre Dame. He also coached at South Carolina and William & Mary. But his main thing was that he was a head coach at Notre Dame. Lou Holtz was brought in when Notre Dame had a losing streak that the alumni, the athletic director, and probably the Pope did not like. So Holtz was brought in to turn it around. And it was his very first year. They were 4-5 going into their last game against USC, University of Southern California. USC was number